The alarm bells rang through the human ship HSS Wolverine like angry wasps. Captain Sarah Chen ran down the metal hallway, her boots making loud sounds on the floor. Her crew was already at their stations when she reached the bridge. "What do we have?" Sarah asked, looking at the big screen in front of her. 12 ships coming toward us, said Lieutenant Park, pointing at the dots on the screen. They looked damaged, really damaged. Sarah looked closer. The ships were strange. They looked like they were made of glass and metal mixed together. They moved slowly, like they were hurt. Some of them had big holes in their sides. "Are they going to attack us?" Sarah asked. "No, Captain," said Park. "They're sending us a message, but it's in a language we don't know." The computer made beeping sounds as it tried to understand the alien words. After a few minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It sounded like wind chimes in a storm. "Human ship. We ask for help. We are dying, please." Sarah felt her heart beat faster. First contact with aliens. This was what every human captain dreamed about. But these aliens sounded scared and desperate. "Put me through to them," Sarah said. The screen changed to show the inside of one of the alien ships. Sarah had to try hard not to show her shock. The alien looked like it was made of living crystal. It was tall and thin, with arms that looked like they might break if touched. Its face was beautiful in a strange way, but Sarah could see fear in its large, colorful eyes. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Fleet," Sarah said slowly. "Who are you?" The alien's head moved up and down like a human nod. "I am called Resonance of Distant Stars. I lead what remains of the Zephyrian people. We are the last ones left." Sarah felt cold. "What happened to your people?" The alien's crystal body seemed to get dimmer. "The harvesters came. They eat everything. Planets, stars, life itself. They destroyed our homeworld. They destroyed all our colonies. We ran, but they follow us always." "How many of you are left?" Sarah asked. 50,000 souls in these 12 ships. We are all that remains of a people who once numbered in billions." Sarah looked around at her crew. They all had the same shocked look on their faces. An entire species almost wiped out. "What can we do to help?" Sarah asked. Resonance of Distant Stars leaned forward. "We heard stories about human Deathworld fleets, ships that can live where no others can survive. Is this true?" Sarah raised her eyebrows. "Deathworld fleets?" "Yes. Other species tell stories. They say humans build cities in places that kill. They say human ships sail through fire and ice and death itself. We hope but we pray these stories are true." Sarah understood now. The aliens thought humans were tougher than other species. They weren't wrong. "Why do you need a Deathworld fleet?" Sarah asked. Before Resonance of Distant Stars could answer, Lieutenant Park called out from his station. "Captain, long range. Sensors are picking up something big coming this way. Really big." Sarah turned to look at the sensor readings. Her blood went cold. The dots on the screen looked like a swarm of insects, but each dot was the size of a battleship. "How far away?" Sarah asked. 3 days, maybe 4 if they slow down," Park said. "But Captain, there are thousands of them." Sarah looked back at the alien leader. "Those are the harvesters?" Resonance of Distant Stars nodded sadly. "They never stop. They never give up. Where we go, they follow. They will consume everything in this system and then move on to the next." Sarah made a decision that would change everything. "We are going to help you, but we need to move fast." "You will help us?" The alien leader's voice was filled with hope. "Even knowing the harvesters will come for you too?" "That's what humans do," Sarah said. "We help people who need help, and we don't run from bullies." She turned to her communication officer. "Send a message to Admiral Rodriguez and the Deep Void Flotilla. Tell them we have refugees and we're coming in hot." "The Deep Void Flotilla?" "Captain?" the officer asked. "They're in the Hadean Nebula. That place is deadly, yes," Sarah said. "Perfect for hiding from harvesters. And if anyone can protect these people, it's Rodriguez and his crazy fleet." She looked back at Resonance of Distant Stars. "Can your ships follow us?" "We're going to take you somewhere safe." The alien leader looked confused. Safe? Where in this galaxy is safe from the harvesters? Sarah smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who was about to do something very dangerous and didn't. We're going to the most dangerous place in local space, Sarah said. A nebula filled with radiation, gravity storms, and stellar debris. Most species can't even get close without dying. Resonance of distant stars stared at her. And you think, we will be safe there? Not safe, Sarah said, but alive. And sometimes that's all you can ask for. The next few hours were busy. The Zephyrian ships were slow and damaged. Some of them could barely keep their engines running. Sarah's crew worked hard to help them, sending over repair materials and medical supplies. Dr. Martinez, the ship's medical officer, came to see Sarah with a worried look. Captain, I've been looking at the biological data the aliens sent us, Martinez said. These Zephyrian, they're incredibly fragile. They evolved on a low-gravity world with perfect atmospheric conditions. The kind of environment we're taking them to could kill them just by breathing the air. Sarah nodded. What about environment suits? Maybe, but Captain, they're asking us to protect them in a place that most species consider uninhabitable. Even with suits, it's going to be rough for them. Sarah looked out at the alien ship struggling to keep up with her vessel. Doctor, their entire species is about to be wiped out. Rough is better than extinct. As the small fleet moved toward the Hadean Nebula, Sarah couldn't help but think about what they were doing. Humans had always been different from other species. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day, weather that could freeze or cook them, animals that wanted to eat them, diseases that wiped out millions, earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, storms. Other species called Earth a death world. They said no intelligent life should be able to evolve there. But humans didn't just evolve on Earth. They learned to love it. They learned to use its dangers as strengths. Maybe that's what the Zephyrians needed now. Not just protection, but teachers who could show them how to turn the galaxy's worst places into homes. The nebula appeared on their screens after 2 days of travel. It looked like a giant storm made of gas and lightning, with dead stars spinning through clouds of poisonous chemicals. Beautiful and terrifying at the same time. There it is, Sarah said to Resonance of Distant Stars, who was watching from the communication screen. The Hadean Nebula, your new home. The alien leader stared at the swirling chaos ahead of them. This place, it looks like the end of the universe. Sarah laughed. Wait until you meet the people who live there. They're going to love you. Behind them, sensors showed the harvester swarm was still coming. But ahead lay the human fleet that had made the impossible their everyday life. Sarah had a feeling this was going to be the start of something incredible. The human fleet appeared out of the nebula like ghosts becoming solid. Resonance of Distant Stars watched from the bridge of their ship and could not believe what they were seeing. There were hundreds of human ships. Big ones, small ones, ships that looked like floating cities, and ships that looked like they were built for war. They moved through the deadly nebula like fish swimming in water. Lightning that could destroy a planet danced around their hulls, and they didn't seem to care. How is this possible? Asked another Zephyrian standing next to their leader. This nebula should kill anything that enters it. Resonance of Distant Stars had no answer. They had studied the readings on the way here. The radiation levels were deadly. The gravity fields changed without warning. Chunks of dead planets flew through the gas clouds at incredible speeds. It was like sailing through hell itself. But the humans had built a home here. A voice came over the communication system. It was deep and confident like the sound of distant thunder. Zephyrian Fleet. This is Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Deep Void Flotilla. Captain Chen told us you might need some help. A new face appeared on the screen. The human was older than Captain Chen, with gray hair and scars on his face. But his eyes were kind, even though they looked like they had seen many battles. Admiral Rodriguez, Resonance of Distant Stars said, trying to keep their voice steady. We are grateful for your protection. But I must ask, how do you live in this place? The Admiral smiled. Same way we live anywhere else. We adapt. We overcome. We make it work. He paused. But I'm guessing you folks aren't built for this kind of environment. No, Resonance of Distant Stars admitted. Our people evolved in perfect conditions. Stable gravity, clean atmosphere, no radiation. This place is trying to kill you every second, the Admiral finished. Yeah, we get that a lot. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. The next few hours were amazing and terrifying at the same time. Human ships came alongside the Zephyrian vessels like helpful neighbors. They brought supplies, medical equipment, and most importantly, environmental suits designed for beings who couldn't survive in harsh conditions. Dr. Elena Vasquez was the first human to come aboard a Zephyrian ship. She was a small woman with quick hands and bright eyes. She looked around at the crystal walls and the delicate machinery with wonder. "This is incredible," she said, running her fingers along a wall that hummed with soft music. "Your entire ship is alive, isn't it?" "In a way," Resonance of Distant Stars explained. "We grow our ships rather than build them. They respond to our thoughts and emotions." "That's beautiful," Dr. Vasquez said, "but also probably why you're having trouble here. Your ships are feeling the same fear you are." She was right. The Zephyrian ships were reacting to the dangerous environment around them. Their walls had turned dark colors, and their systems were working slowly like they were trying to hide. "We need to make them feel safe," Dr. Vasquez said, "and we need to make you feel safe too." Over the next day, Dr. Vasquez and her team worked magic. They created special habitat modules that could be attached to the Zephyrian ships. The modules had perfect atmosphere, stable gravity, and thick walls that blocked the deadly radiation from outside. But even more amazing was what they saw when they visited the human ships. Resonance of Distant Stars put on an environmental suit and took a small shuttle to the human flagship. What they found made their crystal bodies shake with disbelief. The ship was huge inside, with corridors wide enough for small vehicles to drive through. But what shocked the Zephyrian leader was how normal everything seemed. Human children ran through the hallways, playing games and laughing. They passed windows that showed the deadly nebula outside, and the children didn't even look scared. How can they be so calm? Resonance of Distant Stars asked Dr. Vasquez, who was giving them a tour. "This is their home," the doctor said simply. "They've never known anywhere else. To them, this is just what space looks like." They passed a cafeteria where families were eating dinner together. The artificial gravity was set higher than most species could handle, but the humans moved around like it was nothing. Through the windows, chunks of dead planets flew past and nobody seemed to notice. "There," Dr. Vasquez pointed to a section of the ship with thick windows. "That's our school." Inside the school, Resonance of Distant Stars saw something that made them understand humans a little better. Children, some no older than 10 Earth years, were studying star charts of the nebula. They were learning which areas were safe and which areas would kill them instantly, but they weren't learning it with fear. They were learning it like it was just another subject, like math or history. A little girl with red hair looked up and waved at them through the window. She pointed at the Zephyrian's crystal suit and smiled with excitement. For her, meeting an alien was the most wonderful thing that could happen. "Your people," Resonance of Distant Stars said quietly, "they don't fear death." "Oh, we fear it," Dr. Vasquez said. "But we don't let fear stop us from living. That's the difference." They continued the tour, visiting the engineering sections where humans worked in conditions that should have killed them. The workers wore simple protective gear and laughed with each other while fixing equipment in chambers filled with superheated gas. "How hot is it in there?" Resonance of Distant Stars asked. "About 300 degrees, Dr. Vasquez said casually. "Chief Santos likes it warm when she works." They met Chief Engineer Maria Santos, a woman with dark skin and hands that were covered in scars from years of dangerous work. She greeted the alien leader with a big smile and started explaining how human ships were designed. "See, most species build ships to avoid damage," Chief Santos said, pointing at a wall that was 3 feet thick. "We build ships to take damage and keep working anyway. Our hull can lose 60% of its structure and still hold together." "But why?" Resonance of Distant Stars asked. "Why not just avoid the dangerous places?" Chief Santos looked confused by the question. Because the dangerous places are where you find the best stuff. The richest asteroids are always in the worst gravity fields. The rarest elements are always near things that want to kill you. If you avoid danger, you miss out on all the good opportunities. That evening, Admiral Rodriguez invited residents of distant stars to dinner in his private quarters. The room was simple but comfortable, with pictures of planets and stars on the walls. Some of the planets in the pictures looked green and beautiful. Others looked like balls of fire or ice. Those are all places humans live, the Admiral explained, seeing where the alien was looking. That one there is New Melbourne, built inside an active volcano. That one is Frozen Lake Colony, where the average temperature is 200 degrees below zero. And that one, he pointed to a picture of a space station surrounded by lightning. That's my hometown, built inside a gas giant's atmosphere. You choose to live in these places? Residents of distant stars asked. Choose? Hell yes, we choose, Admiral Rodriguez said with a laugh. Safe places are boring. They're also crowded with other species who all want the same comfortable planets. But dangerous places? Nobody else wants them. So we get them all to ourselves. He leaned forward. Let me tell you something about humans. We came from a world that tried to kill us every single day. Earthquakes, storms, predators, diseases, ice ages, asteroid impacts. Most species would have died out. But we didn't just survive. We learned to love the challenge. The Admiral stood up and walked to a window that looked out at the swirling nebula. Other species look at this place and see death. We look at it and see home. It's beautiful, it's dangerous, and it's ours. Residents of distant stars felt something they had never felt before. Not just hope, but something stronger. These humans didn't just want to help the Zephyrians survive. They wanted to teach them how to live. Admiral, the alien leader said slowly, the harvesters that hunt my people, they are very dangerous. Good, Admiral Rodriguez said, turning back with a grin that looked almost scary. Dangerous is our specialty. As if summoned by those words, an alarm started ringing. A voice came over the communication system. Admiral, to the bridge, long-range sensors are picking up the harvester fleet. They've entered the nebula. Admiral Rodriguez's grin got bigger. Well, would you look at that? They followed you right into our backyard. Residents of distant stars felt fear creep through their crystal body. They will destroy everything. They always do. Not this time, the Admiral said. This time they picked a fight with the wrong species. He headed for the door, then stopped and looked back. Want to see how humans deal with bullies? For the first time since their world died, residents of distant stars felt something that might have been excitement mixed with their fear. Yes, they said. I think I do. The hunt was about to begin. The human fleet moved deeper into the nebula like a pack of wolves hunting prey. Residents of distant stars watched from the bridge of their ship, now safely connected to a human habitat module. The crystal walls of their vessel had grown brighter as the fear began to fade, replaced by something the Zephyrians had never felt before: curiosity about these strange Deathworld beings. Dr. Vasquez had set up a temporary laboratory on the Zephyrian flagship. She worked alongside alien scientists trying to understand how their crystal technology functioned. The results were remarkable. Your ship isn't just alive, Dr. Vasquez explained to a group of Zephyrian engineers. It's empathic. It feels what you feel and responds accordingly. That's why it got darker and slower when you were afraid. One of the younger Zephyrians, who had introduced themselves as Harmony of Seven Moons, asked a question that had been bothering them all. But how do human ships function without emotions? How do you make machines work when they cannot feel? Dr. Vasquez smiled and picked up a piece of twisted metal from her workbench. This is hull plating from our ship. See these scratches and dents? Each one tells a story. This burn mark here is from when we flew too close to a solar flare. This crack is from asteroid impact. This spot that looks melted? That's from enemy weapons fire. She set the metal down gently, almost like she was touching a friend. Our ships don't feel emotions the way yours do, but we put our emotions into them Every repair, every modification, every improvement we make is done with care and love. We don't build ships. We grow relationships with them. Harmony of Seven Moons reached out with a delicate crystal finger to touch the scarred metal. You care for machines that cannot care back? That's exactly why we care for them, Dr. Vasquez said. Because they can't ask for help. Because they depend on us completely. Because without us, they're just floating metal boxes. But with us, she gestured toward the window, where human ships were moving through deadly radiation storms like they were gentle breezes. With us, they become homes that can go anywhere. The lesson was interrupted by an announcement over the communication system. All personnel, this is Admiral Rodriguez. We're approaching the target zone. Civilian ships to safe distance. Military, vessels prepare for reconnaissance sweep. Resonance of distant stars made their way to the human flagship's bridge. They had been given permission to observe human military operations, though they still wore their environmental suit. The bridge was busy but calm, with humans working at stations that monitored dozens of different systems. Admiral, called out Lieutenant Commander Thompson, a young man with dark skin and steady hands. Scouts report contact with Harvester Advance. Units. Looks like they're about 2 hours behind us. Good, Admiral Rodriguez said. That gives us time to set up the welcome party. He turned to Resonance of Distant Stars. Ever see humans plan a battle? The alien leader had to admit they had not. In their experience, battles were desperate things where people ran and hid and hoped to survive. Watch and learn, the Admiral said. What followed was unlike anything Resonance of Distant Stars had ever seen. The humans didn't plan to run or hide. They planned to use the deadly nebula as a weapon. The harvesters are biomechanical, explained Commander Thompson, pointing at a three-dimensional map of the surrounding space. They're tough, but they have limitations. High radiation makes their organic components sick. Gravity storms mess up their navigation, and extreme heat or cold slows down their mechanical parts. Admiral Rodriguez nodded. So we're going to give them all three at once. The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. The human fleet would split into 3 groups. One group would lead the harvesters into a radiation field so intense it would kill most species instantly. The second group would use gravity manipulation devices to create artificial storms that would tear ships apart. The third group would drive the enemy toward a newborn star that was throwing off heat and energy like an angry god. This plan will put your own ships in extreme danger, Resonance of Distant Stars pointed out. Yep, Admiral Rodriguez said cheerfully. That's what makes it fun. As the human fleet prepared for battle, Resonance of Distant Stars was invited to visit different sections of the ships. What they saw changed their understanding of humanity forever. In the education section, they found human children attending classes during a red alert situation. The teacher, a calm woman with gray hair, was explaining orbital mechanics while alarm lights flashed around them. Why aren't the children scared? Resonance of Distant Stars asked. Because this is normal for them, the teacher replied. They've lived their whole lives on ships that go into dangerous situations. They trust the adults to keep them safe, and they're learning skills they'll need when they're adults themselves. One little boy, maybe 8 years old, raised his hand. Mrs. Peterson, are we going to fight the bad aliens today? The fleet is going to protect us and our new friends, Mrs. Peterson said, glancing at Resonance of Distant Stars. But remember what we learned about different species. Not all aliens are bad. Some just need help. The boy looked at the crystal-covered, alien visitor with wide eyes. Are you one of the ones who needs help? Yes, Resonance of Distant Stars said softly. My people need help very much. Then you came to the right place, the boy said with complete confidence. Humans are really good at helping people. In the Marine training sections, Resonance of Distant Stars watched human soldiers prepare for boarding actions. They trained in chambers filled with superheated plasma, practiced zero-gravity combat in spinning rooms that would make most beings sick, and ran through scenarios where their equipment failed in deadly environments. Sergeant Major Williams, a large woman with muscles like steel cables, explained the training philosophy. We don't train for perfect conditions, she said while her Marines practiced fighting in suits that were deliberately damaged. We train for when everything goes wrong. When your helmet cracks, when your weapons jam, when the artificial gravity fails and the lights go out. That's when you find out what you're really made of. One of the Marines was practicing combat while his suit leaked air. Another was fighting blind, using only sound and touch to navigate. A third was working with equipment that kept shutting down at random moments. This seems excessive, Resonance of Distant Stars observed. Maybe, Sergeant Major Williams admitted. But when these Marines go into real combat, everything feels easy compared to training. They've already survived worse conditions than most enemies can create. In the research sections, human scientists were doing something that made Resonance of Distant Stars understand why other species told stories about the Deathworld fleets. They were collecting samples from phenomena that should have been impossible to approach. Dr. Sarah Kim, a young woman with excitement in her eyes, showed off her latest discovery. "We found this inside the gravity storm near Sector 7, she said, holding up a container that seemed to bend light around itself. It's matter that exists in a state we've never seen before, probably created by the interaction between dark matter and conventional physics under extreme gravitational stress. How did you get close enough to collect it?" Resonance of Distant Stars asked. "Oh, that was the easy part," Dr. Kim said. "We just flew our collection ship directly into the storm. The gravity nearly tore us apart, but our pilot managed to get us in and out in about 30 seconds. And the pilot survived this?" "Pilot Rodriguez?" "Oh, sure. She's the Admiral's daughter. Third generation of crazy pilots in that family. She said it was the most fun she'd had all week." As the day went on, Resonance of Distant Stars began to see a pattern in human behavior. They didn't just accept danger as part of life. They embraced it. They learned from it. They used it to make themselves stronger. But more than that, they shared that strength with others. Dr. Vasquez had been working with Zephyrian engineers to create hybrid technology. By combining crystal computing with human durability engineering, they created systems that were both elegant and nearly indestructible. "Look at this," Dr. Vasquez said, showing off a new communication device. "It has the processing power and sensitivity of your crystal technology, but it's wrapped in a protective matrix based on human ship design. It can survive radiation, impact damage, and extreme temperatures while still maintaining perfect functionality." Harmony of Seven Moons held the device with wonder. "It's beautiful and strong at the same time. Just like the friendship between our species," Dr. Vasquez said. That evening, as the human fleet continued to move toward the coming battle, Resonance of Distant Stars met with other Zephyrian leaders. They all had the same look of amazed confusion. "These humans," said Whisper of Ancient Stones, one of the older refugees. "They make no sense. They go toward danger instead of away from it. They treat deadly situations like games. They care for beings they just met as if they were family. And yet," added Harmony of Seven Moons, "I feel safer with them than I have felt since our world died." Resonance of Distant Stars looked out at the swirling chaos of the nebula. In the distance, they could see human ships moving in formation, ready to face an enemy that had destroyed entire civilizations. "I think," they said slowly, "that we are about to see something that has—" The Harvester Swarm appeared on the long-range sensors like a disease spreading through space. Resonance of Distant Stars watched the displays from the human flagship's bridge and felt their crystal body grow cold with remembered terror. "How many?" Admiral Rodriguez asked quietly. "Sensors count approximately 15,000 individual units," reported Commander Thompson. "But Admiral, there's something else. Something big." The main screen changed to show a zoomed-in view of the approaching enemy. At the center of the swarm was a massive shape that hurt to look at directly. It was part machine, part living tissue, and part something that didn't belong in normal space. "That's their hive ship," Resonance of Distant Stars said, their voice barely a whisper. "We have seen it before. It consumed our sun." Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the readings, looked up from her station with wide eyes. "It's the size of a small moon," she said. "How is something that big even possible?" "It grows," Resonance of Distant Stars explained. "Every planet it consumes, Every star it drains, every species it destroys makes it larger. It has been feeding for thousands of years. Admiral Rodriguez studied the readings for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had found exactly what they were looking for. "Gentlemen, ladies, and honored alien guests," he announced to the bridge crew, "we have a target." The next few hours were spent in intense preparation. The human fleet spread out through the nebula, taking positions that seemed random but were actually part of a complex battle plan. Resonance of distant stars watched human crews work with calm efficiency, preparing for a battle that should have been impossible to win. "Admiral," they said during a quiet moment, "you cannot seriously intend to attack that thing directly. It is larger than some of our cities were." "You're right," Admiral Rodriguez admitted. "We can't fight it with conventional weapons. Lucky for us, humans stopped being conventional a long time ago." He called up a three-dimensional map of local space. At the center was a dying star, ancient and unstable, throwing off massive amounts of radiation and heat. "That star has been building up pressure for about 10,000 years, the Admiral explained. "It's ready to go nova, but it needs a little push. The hive ship is biomechanical, which means it needs to regulate its temperature. If we can drive it close enough to the star's corona, the heat should start breaking down its organic components." Commander Thompson leaned over the display. "And once its organic parts start failing, the mechanical parts won't be able to function properly." "Exactly," Admiral Rodriguez said. "But here's the tricky part. We need to get close enough to the star to use it as a weapon without getting killed by it ourselves." Resonance of distant stars stared at the display. "You want to fight a battle inside a stellar corona, where the temperature is 10,000 degrees. More like 15,000, Dr. Vasquez corrected cheerfully. "But our ships are rated for up to 20,000, so we should be fine." The alien leader looked around at the humans on the bridge. They were discussing flying into the atmosphere of a dying star like they were planning a trip to the store. "This plan is insane," Resonance of Distant Stars said. "Yep," agreed Admiral Rodriguez. "That's why it might actually work." The Zephyrian fleet had been placed at what humans considered a safe distance from the battle zone, but even from there they could see the preparations being made. Human ships were installing additional heat shielding, upgrading their weapon systems, and running final checks on equipment that would be tested beyond its limits. Harmony of Seven Moons contacted Resonance of Distant Stars from one of the refugee ships. "Leader, our people are asking if they can help in the battle. We know our ships are not built for combat, but we cannot simply hide while others fight for us." Resonance of Distant Stars thought about this for a long moment. Their ships were fragile compared to human vessels. Their weapons were designed for mining and construction, not warfare. But they had something the humans didn't have. "Contact Dr. Vasquez," they said. "Tell her we have an idea." An hour later, the Zephyrian ships were being fitted with human-designed protective systems. Thick armor plating covered their crystal hulls. Radiation shielding protected their delicate internal systems. Emergency life support systems were installed, in case their ships were damaged. But most importantly, the humans had figured out how to weaponize Zephyrian crystal technology. "Your ships communicate through harmonic resonance," Dr. Vasquez explained, showing a group of Zephyrian engineers the modifications. "The same frequencies you use to talk to each other can disrupt the neural networks of biomechanical organisms." She activated a test device. The air filled with a sound like singing crystals, beautiful and complex. "That's just a low-power test," she said. "At full power focused through your ship's natural crystal matrix, this should be able to interfere with the harvester hive mind. It won't destroy them, but it might confuse them long enough for our weapons to be effective." Harmony of Seven Moons touched the device with wonder. "You have turned our songs into weapons? We've turned your songs into hope," Dr. Vasquez corrected. The battle began at the edge of the nebula. Human scout ships engaged the Harvester advance units in running battles among the asteroid fields. The fighting was brutal, but brief. Human ships could take damage that would cripple most vessels and keep fighting. When their weapons were damaged, they used their ships as battering rams. When their hulls were breached, they sealed the holes with emergency patches and continued the attack. But the real goal wasn't to win these small battles. It was to make the harvesters angry enough to follow the humans deeper into the nebula, toward the dying star. "They're taking the bait," Commander Thompson reported. "Main fleet is changing course. They're coming after us." Admiral Rodriguez watched the tactical display with satisfaction. "Good. How long until we reach the star?" 6 hours at current speed, came the reply. "And how long until the harvesters catch up?" 4 hours. The Admiral's smile got bigger. "Perfect. That gives us 2 hours to get into position." As the human fleet moved toward the dying star, resonance of distant stars saw something that made them understand why humans were different from every other species they had known. The closer they got to the deadly star, the more excited the humans became. "Look at those radiation readings," called out Dr. Kim from the science station. "This is incredible. We're getting data on stellar phenomena that nobody has ever been able to study up close." "Gravity fields are off the charts," added another scientist. "The space-time distortion near the star is creating effects we've only theorized about." "Temperature. Readings are approaching 20,000 degrees, reported the engineering station. "All ships report heat shields functioning normally. They were flying into conditions that would kill most species instantly, and they were treating it like the most interesting field trip ever." The harvester swarm followed them like a storm cloud of death. The main hive ship moved in the center of the formation, protected by thousands of smaller vessels. As they got closer to the star, the biomechanical creatures began to show signs of stress. Their formations became less organized. Their movements became more erratic. "The heat is affecting them," observed Commander Thompson. "Just like you predicted, Admiral." "Time to turn up the temperature," Admiral Rodriguez said. He opened a communication channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is the Admiral. We are now entering the corona of a dying star to fight an enemy that has consumed entire civilizations. This is either going to be the stupidest thing we've ever done, or the most brilliant." He paused for a moment, then continued with a voice full of joy. "Either way, it's going to be one hell of a ride. All ships attack formation. Let's show these harvesters what happens when they mess with a Deathworld fleet." The human ships accelerated toward the stellar corona like arrows shot from a bow. Behind them, the harvester swarm followed, driven by their instinct to consume and destroy. And hidden among the human vessels, the Zephyrian ships prepared to add their voices to a battle song that would echo across the galaxy. Resonance of distant stars felt something they had never experienced before. Not just hope, but anticipation. These humans weren't just going to try to survive the harvesters, they were going to hunt them. The star grew larger ahead of them, a ball of fire and fury that promised either victory or destruction. As they approached the corona, where the temperature would rise to levels that could melt planets, Admiral Rodriguez made one final announcement. "Remember, people, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting to prove that there's nowhere in this galaxy that bullies can hide. Today, we take the fight to them." The battle for the future of two species was about to begin in the fires of a dying star. The battle began in the chromosphere of a dying star, where the temperature was hot enough to melt steel in seconds. Human ships dove into the stellar atmosphere like swimmers jumping into an ocean of fire. Their heat shields glowed white-hot, but they held together. Behind them, the harvester swarm followed, their biomechanical forms already showing damage from the extreme conditions. Resonance of distant stars watched from the bridge of the human flagship as the impossible became reality. Ships designed by a species that had learned to love danger were fighting in an environment that should have killed everyone instantly. "All ships, commence attack pattern Alpha," Admiral Rodriguez ordered. His voice was calm despite the fact that they were flying through temperatures that could destroy planets. The human fleet split into 3 groups, just as planned. Group 1 engaged the outer edges of the harvester formation with weapons that had been modified to work in the stellar environment. Group 2 used gravity manipulation devices to create artificial whirlpools in the star's atmosphere, trapping enemy ships in currents of superheated plasma. Group 3, led by the Admiral himself, drove straight toward the massive hive ship at the center of the swarm. "Zephyrian ships, you're up," the Admiral called over the communication system. Time to sing. The 12 refugee ships, now protected by human armor and shielding, moved into formation. Their crystal hulls began to vibrate with harmonic frequencies that turned the vacuum of space into a musical instrument. The sound was beautiful and alien, like the songs of dying stars translated into music. But to the harvesters, it was agony. The biomechanical creatures writhed as the crystal songs disrupted. Their neural networks, ships that had moved in perfect formation, suddenly broke apart, their pilots unable to coordinate their actions. The massive hive ship shuddered as waves of harmonic disruption washed over its organic components. "It's working," shouted Commander Thompson from his station. "The harvesters are losing coordination. Their formation is falling apart." "Now's our chance," Admiral Rodriguez said. "All ships target the hive ship. Everything we've got." The human fleet opened fire with weapons that had never been designed to function in stellar atmospheres. Plasma cannons sent bolts of energy that were barely visible against the background of the star itself. Kinetic weapons fired projectiles that glowed like meteors as they flew through the superheated gas. Missile systems launched warheads that had been specially designed to explode in high-temperature environments, but the hive ship was enormous and ancient. It had survived battles against entire civilizations. The human weapons damaged its outer hull but couldn't penetrate to its core. "We're not doing enough damage," Commander Thompson reported. "That thing is too big and too well protected." "Admiral." Rodriguez looked at the tactical display, then at resonance of distant stars. "How close do we need to get to the hive ship's core to do real damage?" The alien leader studied the readings. "The central processing matrix is deep inside. You would need to..." "Oh." They stopped talking as they realized what the Admiral was thinking. "That's right," Admiral Rodriguez said with a grin that looked almost scary. "We're going to board it." What followed was the most insane military operation in recorded history. Human marine shuttles, their hulls glowing from the heat of the stellar atmosphere, flew directly at the hive ship, while it was under attack from the main fleet. The shuttles were tiny compared to the enemy vessel, like insects attacking a mountain. But the shuttles made it through the harvester defenses and attached themselves to the hive ship's hull. Magnetic clamps and fusion torches cut through armor that was thousands of years old. Marines in heavy combat suits poured into the alien vessel, fighting their way through corridors filled with biomechanical horrors. Leading the boarding party was Lieutenant Commander Thompson, who had volunteered for what everyone knew was probably a suicide mission. His squad of Marines moved through the hive ship like they were exploring a dangerous cave system, which wasn't far from the truth. "This place is like something out of a nightmare," reported Sergeant Williams over the communication link. "The walls are alive and they're trying to grow shut behind us." "Keep moving forward," Thompson replied. "We need to find the central processing matrix." Meanwhile, outside the hive ship, the battle continued to rage. Human vessels that had taken damage that would have destroyed any other fleet kept fighting. When their weapons failed, they used their ships as battering rams. When their hulls were breached, they sealed the holes and kept attacking. The Zephyrian ships continued their harmonic bombardment, their crystal songs growing stronger as more of their people joined the chorus. Harmony of Seven Moons had taken command of the refugee fleet's combat operations, and their clear voice rang out over the communication channels. "Human friends, we are detecting weakness in the enemy's neural network. The songs of our people are breaking down their ability to think as one mind." "Keep it up," Admiral Rodriguez replied. "You're giving us the opening we need." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Vasquez, who had been monitoring the battle from the flagship's science station, made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral," she called out excitedly, "I've been analyzing the hive ship's energy patterns. It's not just biomechanical. It's been feeding off stellar energy to power its growth, but it means the star's heat isn't just damaging it," Admiral Rodriguez finished. "It's overloading it." "Exactly. If we can force it deeper into the star's atmosphere, its own feeding mechanism will cause it to absorb more energy than it can handle. It will literally burn itself out." The Admiral turned to the tactical officer. "Can we push that thing deeper into the corona?" "If we coordinate all our ships, maybe. But Admiral, that would put us so close to the star that even our heat shields might not hold." Admiral Rodriguez looked around the bridge at his crew. They looked back at him with complete trust and no fear at all. "Sounds like Tuesday to me," he said. "All ships, prepare for final assault. We're going to use a dying star as our weapon." What followed was a maneuver that military historians would study for centuries. The human fleet formed up in a massive formation around the hive ship and began to push it deeper into the star's atmosphere. It was like a pack of wolves driving a wounded giant toward a cliff. The heat became incredible. Ship after ship reported critical damage to their hull plating. Emergency systems activated throughout the fleet. But the humans didn't retreat. They pressed forward, using their ships as tools to drive the enemy into the fire. Inside the hive, Ship Thompson and his Marines had finally reached the central processing chamber. What they found was a vast room filled with organic computers that pulsed with alien thoughts. "There," Thompson said, pointing at a massive structure in the center of the chamber. "That's got to be the main brain." The structure was protected by the most advanced biomechanical defenses the Harvesters had ever created. But the Marines had brought something the ancient enemy had never faced before: human determination combined with Zephyrian crystal technology. "Harmony, can you hear me?" Thompson called over his communication system. The Zephyrian leader's voice came through clearly. "We hear you, brave human friend. We need one final song. The biggest, loudest, most beautiful song your people can create. Can you do that?" There was a pause. Then Harmony's voice came back, filled with emotion. "For the friends who taught us to fight instead of flee, we will sing a song that will be remembered until the end of time." The crystal voices of 50,000 Zephyrians joined together in a harmony that made the vacuum of space itself vibrate. The sound was channeled through the hive ship's own structure, turning the entire vessel into a resonating chamber. The central processing matrix, overwhelmed by harmonics it was never designed to handle, began to break apart. Thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and malice dissolved into chaos. At the same moment, the combined pressure of the human fleet drove the hive ship deep enough into the star's atmosphere that its biomechanical feeding systems went into overdrive. It began to absorb stellar energy faster than it could process, causing a chain reaction that spread throughout its massive structure. "All ships, emergency retreat," Admiral Rodriguez ordered. "That thing is about to go critical." The human fleet pulled back from the star just as the hive ship exploded with the force of a small supernova. The blast wave, contained and amplified by the star's gravity well, spread outward through the harvester swarm. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia were reduced to cosmic dust in seconds. When the sensors cleared, the threat that had destroyed entire civilizations was gone. The aftermath was quiet. Human ships, battered but victorious, regrouped in the outer layers of the nebula. Medical teams worked to treat the wounded. Engineering crews began repairs that would take weeks to complete. But everyone was alive. Humans and Zephyrians both had survived a battle that should have been impossible to win. 6 months later, the galaxy was a different place. The destruction of the Harvester hive ship had sent a message to every predator species in known space. There were some prey that fought back. The Zephyrian refugees had not returned to their destroyed homeworld. Instead, they had chosen to stay with the human Deathworld fleets. There,